again, everybody. Welcome inside the VIBELAND Sports Studios. I'm Todd Miller, joined by KP and Casady Fletcher. It's episode 32, and a nice weekend. For some people on this set, it wasn't for me, other than OU winning. Everything else went to heck. Do you guys remember last week me making fun of Dan Snyder and calling him the Bryce Crawford of fantasy football?
Oh, yes.
Guess who lost to Bryce Crawford this weekend?
Oh, no, you didn't.
Oh,
Yeah, I
hey,
did.
and the best part about it, Kelby, is Bryce
Has a running back on bye.
on a bye week.
It's starting.
Oh, no.
But who cares? I mean, he hasn't won a game with the guy. So
That's fair. That's a
my
good
whole
point.
team apparently had a bye week. I didn't even score 100 points.
Yeah.
So anyway, no more talking about fantasy football ever again. Well, we'll continue to throw stones at Bryce because
Sure.
I can.
Absolutely.
I took it. How was everybody's weekend?
Oh, man. So I was at the Red River Showdown in Dallas.
You know who was it at the Red River Showdown? These two guys.
That's right. That's right.
too.
Got to go down with Peyton and Dylan, my sister and brother-in-law, and we had a great time down there. I had to leave Seminole, where I was the night before, at about 3:30 in the morning to make sure I got down there in time and got into the fair and actually had a chance to see the fair before, 11 o'clock kick. That's tough.
Yeah, that's tough.
Oh, to be young again, because that just absolutely makes me sick even thinking about doing it. But once upon a time, that's a good time.
You had a
yes.
full 8-hour day before kickoff.
I'm telling you,
Jeez.
yeah. I hopped on the DART train at Carrollton and took it in. So that dropped me off right at the state fair. A little pro tip for anybody that ever wants to go: that's the easiest way to do it. You pay like $6 for the entire day. You can go anywhere you want in Dallas on the train,
And trust me,
and it's free parking.
$6 won't even touch parking at
No.
the state
Yeah.
fair or the Cotton Bowl.
Oh no! So.
So smart move.
Oh yeah, right outside the fair was $50.
I believe it.
And I still had to walk I think it was about a mile that you had to walk
Jeez.
to get actually into the fair, and that was $50 parking.
Jeez.
So yikes.
Which I probably would have been paying because, I'll pay as much as I have to
Whatever.
keep from doing any form of exercise or walking.
Get as close as you can. Yeah,
That's exactly
but
right.
what a great weekend. It's always a fun time down in Dallas.
And your weekend sounds like you did a bunch of honeydews.
Oh, just a bunch
without
of
a honey to tell you.
Right.
To do it.
My wife was out of town, so I took the opportunity to get a bunch of work done around the house, get the baby's room set up, build some furniture, pretend to be a dad for the
For our listeners, let's update where we at on the game clock in terms of kickoff for the young one.
for the the kickoff for the fatherhood for me. We are due Christmas Day. Literally Christmas Day.
Don't
is
do
when
that
he's
to the
due.
baby.
Well, it's too far into it right now. He's 7 months cooked, so
I'm telling you,
It's
get
too
it
late.
done before or after. No, I can't imagine anything worse than having a birthday on Christmas.
yeah, don't remind
Because
me.
it's truly the one day that you can't, it's not your day.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
it tough.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. That's why I'm crossing my fingers. In my perfect world, first off, healthy baby, perfect world, healthy
Yes.
baby. In my perfect world, he's born early and we get to have him home by Christmas. But early and fully developed, not early. We get to spend the next few weeks in the hospital
Yes.
and all that unpreparedness that I'm not ready for.
So
healthy
basically,
baby, first and
Rashika's already
foremost.
given you
Yes.
your Christmas gift this year.
Yes, exactly.
And it's the
fun.
gift that's going to keep on giving.
And taking, but mostly giving. Mostly giving. The sacrifices have already begun. I already take his bedroom is what was our office, so I had to take down my office, and I was telling people at work that was my first sacrifice of a million to come, was taking my office apart and making it the baby's room. So here's to you, Logan. Thanks for taking my office.
Nice.
All right, big game in Dallas. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about Oklahoma State returning to the playing field, celebrating homecoming in Stillwater against Baylor. We'll talk about the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Major League Baseball playoffs, and a whole lot more going on. Casady, last week was a really popular episode we did, and it had nothing to do with the three clowns that are on this show. It had to do with the wise wisdom of Toby Rowland. What a great guest he was. As I tweeted, it was probably my favorite interview I've done on this show just because I love Toby so much. But he was so candid with his answers, and I think the audience took a liking to that as well.
Oh, yes. And he was dead on in his analysis. I mean, talked about...
He does a little prep work.
Oh, just a little bit, especially for that game, knowing just the magnitude of it. But, he mentioned that if OU's able to slow down the Texas run game, and especially Sam Ehlinger in that run game, then they're going to do fine. And Texas had 100 yards rushing and sacked Ellinger 9 times. So I'd say they absolutely performed in that category.
The Sammy Ellinger rush game was a non-factor.
Oh, boy.
In the game, they shut him down. So Toby nailed that on the head.
All right, we're going to talk more in depth about that in just a moment. We do want to remind our listeners to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at VIBELAND Sports, also on Facebook, VIBELAND Sports as well. And when you visit our Twitter page each week, we have a fan poll question of the week. Congratulations to Casady and I think you might have been in the minority about who wins the Red River Showdown Saturday in Dallas. 89% of you said Oklahoma. 11% said Texas. Were you one of the 11%?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
Do you remember last week on here?
I do.
I said OU. I was hyping Sooner fans up.
That's right.
I said they covered the spread and some. I was wrong there, so I forgot about the rivalry
I
game.
knew that
I'm
wasn't
okay
gonna
with the
happen.
W at all in that game.
Can I be honest with you guys? So all week long, I'm telling everybody to listen to me, including the listeners on this podcast, how OU's going to just blow them out. Blow them out. It doesn't matter that it's Texas. It doesn't matter that it's Red River rivalry. I'm in a college football pick'em all week long. I had selected it on Tuesday that OU was going to cover that spread. 5 minutes before kickoff, I went and said that Texas is going to cover that spread because I reminded myself that it's a rivalry game.
Yes.
So
Go back and
I got
listen to
real.
it.
And guess what? I got the pick
It
right.
worked for you.
I went with my gut, but all week long, anybody that would listen to me, I was hyping them up saying they'd blow them out. But right before kickoff, I told myself, I was like, you know what? This is a rivalry game. It's going to be close. And about the first drive, I had talked myself out of that. I was like, screw the rivalry game. OU's dominating this game. Texas has no chance, and then we'll get into it. Jalen Hurts made a few mistakes, and it changed from there and turned back into a rivalry game. But I'm glad I made my choice and my switch at the last minute there.
Heck yeah.
You haven't followed that game in depth enough to know that it doesn't matter. I mean,
Does not
Texas has
matter.
been bad in the past 5 years, and they've either beaten OU or they've easily covered what was a ridiculous spread. You can go back and listen. Casady and I both, I think you said 7 right on the number. I said 7 or 8 points. I didn't think there was any way that OU was going to cover that game. Let's get right to it. Everybody all year long has been waiting for OU's defense to get that test, and they got a test, and they passed it with flying colors. Am I ready to say this is the best OU defense in school history? No. But I'm going to tell you this. If they continue to progress the way they progressed, this is a national championship caliber football team right now.
I totally agree with you, Todd. And for the first time in, 5, 10, 15 years, I can't even tell you the last time that I was this comfortable with an OU defense and what they're actually able to bring to the table. And they completely showed up. They shut down anything that Texas wanted to do, were dominant for long stretches of that game, not letting the Longhorns really do much of anything. And they needed to be at times because I think the OU offense maybe sputtered a bit. And for once, the OU defense was able to pick up the offense instead of vice versa.
It's been a long time since it's looked that way.
Yeah.
Any team in the Big 12, but OU especially. That defense was we said it before the game last week. We said there's going to be 2 questions that's going to be answered. Is OU's defense for real, and is Texas back? The answer to is Texas back is a firm no, and the answer to is OU's defense for real is a firm yes. They did it on a big stage, big time. I mean, the first drive of the game, OU takes the ball, runs it down the field, scores 7. Texas runs out to the field. What's the first thing OU does? 3 and out and stops them. So they made plays all day long, and they set the tone early.
Well, I think Texas is getting closer to being back. I think that was evident in the bowl game last year. I think it was evident in the fact that they had a shot to beat LSU, a very good LSU team in Austin earlier this year. But when you look at the sum total of their parts, you can tell that they're not quite back yet. I mean, the on-field product just isn't what the University of Texas should be putting out there. But it's still a step forward, maybe 2 or 3 steps forward under Tom Herman.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is not a Texas team that's going to be in danger of losing to Kansas. So you can, from probably that was maybe the low point in all of Texas football for the last 15-plus years. They're definitely past that. They're on the come up, but they're not all the way back. I do not think that they're a team that can compete for a national championship, and that's when you know that Texas is back, when you're talking about them as one of the 4 to 5 best teams in college football, because that's the standard that they have set for themselves. That's the standard that if you want to consider a team like Texas and what they've done previously and where they're going to, where everyone in the nation would say, yes, Texas is back, that would be getting into the college football playoff. They're not even going to be close to that this year.
Well, here's my take on it, and I don't want to sound like an arrogant Sooner fan because I'm not. I mean, I'll call it what it is. And I understand that this great run over the last 2 decades plus we've been on is a very big blessing. But everything is cyclic in college football. You have coaching changes, you have injuries, and at some point this period of dominance for OU is going to slow down. But to me, as long as Lincoln Riley is the head coach in Norman, and I don't think it's just this year. We can talk about that later, but I don't think it's just this year. But as long as Lincoln Riley stays in Norman, Texas will not be back in the Big 12, in my opinion. I think Texas has a Lincoln Riley problem. The guy is now 3-1 KP against the Longhorns head-to-head.
Absolutely, and it's just like we were saying earlier, the difference between those two teams was incredible. I mean, OU had playmakers across the field. Texas, they just couldn't make a single play, and it blew my mind watching CeeDee Lamb just crap all over Texas all game long. That one play, I think his second touchdown, that poor Texas corner was going 3 different directions at the same time and couldn't even keep up. I don't even think he touched CeeDee. CeeDee juked him out of his shoes multiple times. And you see these Texas players littered all over OU's roster. And when you're looking at the guys at the next level, there's a lot of guys from Texas at the next level. That's where they played high school football, but they did not end up playing at the University of Texas.
I think one of the things, guys, that people don't talk about enough that has hurt Texas a little bit is the fact that Texas A&M now plays in the SEC. I mean, especially from a defensive standpoint. Now, Texas has always been good defensively, but a lot of those defensive guys now want to go play in the SEC. When A&M and Texas were both in the Big 12, you're kind of recruiting the same type guy. Not that you don't, in essence, the way it is now, but just the mystique of the SEC, I think, is pulling maybe some guys away that in the past would have gone to Texas.
Oh, sure. It's definitely cut into their their recruiting grounds. They had very fertile recruiting grounds for high school football in the state of Texas, but with the dominance of the SEC and the way that the media has portrayed the SEC the last several years, it's the most exciting conference to go to if you're a high school athlete, and I think they get a lot of those guys that now, if you want to stay in state, now you're looking down south at College Station rather than Austin. So
because I think
it's definitely hurting them.
I think your path to the NFL is a little easier to get on as far as perspective goes. Playing
it
in
is
the
on the
SEC.
defensive side of the football.
No doubt.
Yeah, you're right.
The other thing, speaking of defense, we've talked about how much more improved OU's defense is. I think number-wise, it's 31 of the country now. We'd said a week or two ago if they were just in the 80s, and that's a vast improvement from the last few years, then you have a chance to do something special. But not only is Kenneth Murray having a season that we all thought he would have, he's having a season that now you start putting him into talk about the Butkus Award. But how about Neville Gallimore? This guy, KP, is finally physically starting to live up to his expectations.
I mean, he's been making and will make these draft scouts drool. If you look at his numbers on paper, his height, his wingspan, his weight, his speed, all these measurables that make these combine guys go nuts. Well, now Neville's putting the game tape on the film also. So it's not just these coaches looking at these numbers and going, I got to mold this guy or coach this guy up to get him where he could be. He's starting to get there on the field and putting it on tape. So he is making himself some money, and these scouts are drooling even more now because they have tape along with the numbers.
All right, OU Texas in the rearview mirror. The Sooners are now 6-0 in the season. Texas falls to 4-2. Up next for OU, an 11 o'clock game, shocker, Saturday in Norman against West Virginia. Also in-state this week, Oklahoma State, KP, big weekend for the Cowboy faithful.
Absolutely.
It's homecoming at Stillwater, and a big football game against, I'm telling you, one of the better teams in this conference.
One of the big
Baylor.
surprises. Yeah. I'm shocked that they are still undefeated. Now, they got there ugly this weekend, but they got there. So I think, it's going to be a good game this weekend in Stillwater. Here comes the cowboy glasses that I'm wearing on. You would like to think that we've had 2 weeks to prepare for this team.
I was going to ask you, did that bye week not come at the perfect time?
Perfect.
For Oklahoma State?
This is a look yourself in the mirror. What kind of football team are you? Gundy was asking the questions, weeks ago against Texas. Oh, did I work them too hard? Did I practice them too hard? I don't think that's been the case. Gundy thought it, so he would know better than I would, obviously. But the weeks off, you got time to get in the film room and watch and learn and figure out the right play calls in the right situations. I think you got time to throw some trick plays in there. The crowd is going to be excited. It's going to be full. It's homecoming. The fans are going to roll out. The stadium's going to be full. You'd like to see, with all this time, let's do something fun, Gundy. Let's bust out the tricks. Let's do some flea flickers. Let's get some reverses going. Like, get the energy back in Boone Pickens Stadium and get this team back on track where it needs to be.
Another question. Chuba Hubbard.
Mm-hmm.
I've been saying forever, this guy cannot continue at this pace, this workload. Why do you not get Spencer Sanders and his tools more involved besides just being a quarterback? This guy could take a lot of pressure off of Hubbard in the run game, in my opinion.
I think they are. I mean, he's been getting about 15 carries a game. You'd like to see a little bit more, but in my opinion, yes, I agree with you that they need to have more called run plays for him, but the backup running backs have to step up. LD Brown has got to get more than 5 touches a game, and maybe it's because he's not doing anything with it right now, which I agree with, but in the past, if you look at these guys, in my opinion, great backup running backs at OSU have then turned to excellent starting running backs the next year. Justice Hill was an excellent backup running back. Chuba Hubbard, excellent backup running back. They're guys that you can go hand the ball to. And if you look at all the NFL teams out there, most teams, the ones that are really successful, they have a stable of running backs, not just one guy. Same thing in college, just for a change of pace, just for a breather. Just like you said, the 30-plus carries a game. When we get past, when it's bowl game time, when it's OU time, when it's, end of the season time, he's going to be banged up, and he's not going to be able to last as long. He's not going to be able to take those strong carries all the way into the fourth quarter. So you got to find a way to alleviate him some more, get Spencer more involved, get the backup running backs more involved. And what I want to see more is get him more involved in the passing game, Chuba. Give him some space outside, throw more screens to him. But, you got to give the ball to your playmaker, and that's the best guy on the field and wearing orange and black.
I'm going to tell you, Casady, this is a dangerous game for Oklahoma State. The one thing they have going for them in this game, besides coming off a bye week, is that it's Baylor and Stillwater. Mm-hmm. The Bears, for some reason, and they've had some really good teams under Art Briles that went up there and just got whacked. They do not play well at Boone Pickens Stadium. That's what the Cowboys, I think, have going for them this week, because this is a team you can't overlook coming in.
No, not at all. This is going to be a very tough test. One of the, I'd say outside of Texas, probably the toughest test this season. The way that Baylor has been playing, again, they are a huge surprise, I think, to everybody in the Big 12 and probably nationwide as well. As well as they've been able to play on both sides of the football this season. And so I know it's going to be. It's homecoming. Oklahoma State always gets up big for homecoming. It's going to be a great atmosphere at that stadium. And so all that is in Oklahoma State's favor, but I still think they're going to have to play that underdog role and go in and knock off Baylor and try to get this season moving back in the right direction. The bye week and everything sets up so perfectly. I think Oklahoma State has a really good shot here to get moving back in the right direction, not drop their third Big 12 conference game already, and then stay in contention. You don't know what's going to happen down the line. Texas could lose again, and there could be multiple teams that could lose, and you could end up higher in that final standings at the end of the season, and it's going to help for bowl game and for recruiting and everything. So I just think that this is a big turning point in the Cowboys season, and they're going to have to come out, though, and compete at the highest level they have all season in order to knock off a very good Baylor team.
I agree with you what you said completely about the underdog role. That is absolutely how OSU has to walk into this game, because on paper and looking at the records this year and looking at the way they perform, they are not the better team. So we can't walk in there with that cockiness thinking, we're OSU, this is Stillwater, you're Baylor, we're better than you. That's not the case. We got to go in there and say, that's a tough football team we're about to play that's excellent, coached by an excellent head coach. Is there a better head coach not named Lincoln Riley in college football? I'm sorry, not college football, in the Big 12 right now than Matt Rule?
I don't know. Matt Campbell's pretty good.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
Gary Patterson's pretty good.
Those are some good guys, but Matt Rule was a defensive coordinator away from being a head
You're
coach
right.
in the
He
NFL.
absolutely brought that program up from the ashes.
He was the Jets had the offer in place and said, "You're coming here if you're keeping our defensive coordinator." He said, "If I'm your head coach, I'm bringing my guys." And they said, "No thanks," and he said, "No thanks." He was about to be the head coach of the New York Jets, and he's coaching the Baylor Bears right now. So, to me, Matt Rule is a guy that he's not going to be there long because he's going to go take a more lucrative offer, I'm sure, but he deserves it. 6-0 Baylor Bears. That's impressive.
Okay, we're going to get you a little emotional here, all right?
All right.
Casady and I both will admit, although I don't know if there's video evidence, it's been so long since I've been there, that I've actually been to an Oklahoma State homecoming. I didn't go to the football game. I did the walk around on a Friday night, which I'm going to tell you reminds me of being on a high school campus. It's just that special spirit.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like a college homecoming.
No.
You've been part of a fraternity there. You understand how important this event is to the alumni, but to the students as well.
It's so cool. So let me explain to the listeners if you've never been to Oklahoma State homecoming. They make floats, but these floats, they're called house decks. They stay in the fraternity's front yard. They don't go on a float and drive down the street. Now, each one has moving parts, and everything is made, engineered, designed, hung. Every bit of it is done by the students. There's no outside help. We rented the equipment. We had the ag guys doing the welding. All of that stuff happens in the house. And so what we did was called pumping, where it's you take chicken wire and you take tissue paper and glue and a pencil and you shove tiny tissue into tiny chicken wire holes. You start pumping day one of classes being started. Day one, August 5th or whenever school starts.
See, that blows my mind.
Homecoming prep starts, and it goes all the way to the night before homecoming. It's called all-night pump. The night before homecoming, you stay up all night and you pump. You finish everything you need to do, tie up all the loose ends. And we did it every year, all night long, all night pump. So it goes from day one of school till the night before, which will be October the 18th this weekend. Yeah, I think that's right. So that is going to be the date. So it takes 2.5 months from beginning to end, and it's so cool to watch all these moving parts. Todd, like you said, the population, I think they say 80 to 100,000 people roll into town that Friday night.
Unreal.
The streets are shut down. People are walking everywhere. Just like you said, the positive vibes, the good energy. Everybody's there having a good time, smiling, wearing their orange. Even if you're not an OSU fan, I love seeing people in their OU shirts there, the opposing fans coming, because it's just a cool gathering that not any other
people
place
really
does.
wear OU shirts there?
I've seen it. I've
Really?
seen it during homecoming. They're
I don't
brave
think
and
I'd be
they're,
that stupid.
they're standing by themselves. They're drinking their beer in a bag. It's you know exactly who I'm talking about. But they're there.
You mean they drink beer at homecoming?
Well, that's.
I didn't think so.
Oh,
That surprises me.
wait till game day. Usually the night of homecoming, it's pretty calm.
I didn't know they drank beer in Stillwater.
Oh, just a little bit. I've had a couple there myself too, if I'm being honest.
No, this is a family show. Stop that.
Exactly right.
So, do you like the Cowboys, I guess, at home?
I
over
do.
Baylor?
In a close one. I think they pull it out in the fourth quarter. I think Baylor hasn't played a guy like Spencer Sanders just yet. And I think because of that, I think we overcome it. But again, I just said Baylor hasn't. I'm putting a lot of pressure on the freshman's shoulders right there. But I think with it being homecoming, I think OSU wins a tight one, plays the underdog role, and comes in and says, hey, this is a great opportunity to put this season right back on track. And our goals are still within reach. They're harder to reach, but they're still there. And it starts with a victory this weekend.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at VIBELAND Sports, also on Facebook, VIBELAND Sports as well. We're going to take a break. When we return, what's going on in Dallas and in Kansas City, and some other NFL thoughts. That's coming up next, segment 2 of episode 32 of VIBELAND Sports, a weekly presentation of VIBELAND, Inc. Back on segment 2 of this week's edition of VIBELAND Sports, Todd Miller, Casady Fletcher, and Kelby Peterson. Let's talk NFL football. First of all, let's start in the show me state. Show me what's wrong with the Chiefs besides their defense isn't very good. Back-to-back losses at Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs are now 4-2, and all of a sudden that division of the AFC West that looked to be theirs to own getting to be a little tighter now.
Yeah, first of all, I think you just have to put a lot of their issues on their defense.
It's terrible.
Because, my gosh, yeah, it is just – they can't slow anybody down, much less stop them. And so that puts so much pressure on the offense and on Patty Mahomes and what he's able to do. And look, I think that there's so many weapons on that offensive side of the football that there's no reason for them to lose games, especially at home, especially to the types of opponents that they've lost to the last 2 weeks. I just think that you have to go back to the drawing board on the defensive side of the football for the Chiefs, and I think if you can get that ironed out, I think everything looks a lot better for that Chiefs team, which, again, I think that Chiefs team is good enough to win the Super Bowl if they can get some kind of defensive performance.
I'm starting to cool on them. I picked him to win the AFC, but Mahomes, who knows how long this ankle injury is going to bother him. And it was evident yesterday, guys. I don't know if you even watched it on the Red Zone channel or highlights, just how much that ankle is bothering him when he gets out of the pocket. I mean, he looked nothing like himself yesterday. And I think that was a big reason that they ended up losing that football game. But until they figure something out on defense, they may not even get to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, they've put a lot of pressure, in my opinion, on Pat Mahomes to do too much. I think the Texans had a great game plan, though, yesterday also. And the game plan was keep them off the field as long as possible. And guess what? It worked. Let me tell you guys read some stats for you real quick. Do you want to know how many rushes the Kansas City Chiefs attempted yesterday?
Not very many.
11.
Whoa.
For 17 yards. Their leading rusher was LaShawn McCoy, who had 8 carries for 44 yards. They were shut down. Patty Mahomes, 35 pass attempts. That's what you'd think to hear. Oh, the 11 carries. Patrick Mahomes probably threw the ball 50, 60 times. 35. That's a pretty normal Patrick Mahomes, I would say, NFL quarterback passing game. And so they just kept them off the field. It was a Texans, give credit to them. They had an excellent game plan. J.J. Watt was a monster once again. But, yeah, I mean, like you said, Todd, it's their defense is creating more questions to be asked than needs to. If you're that team with that high-powered of an offense, you would hope that your defense just has to play decent, and you're going to win most of your games.
Well, there's speculation if they don't start playing better at home, they're going to move them over to Kaufman because their neighbors don't play well at home either. So, anyway, Chiefs, frustrating 4-2, but again, I think a lot of their goals are still ahead, but they do have some big-time question marks. One is Mahomes has got to get healthy with that ankle. You don't know how long that's going to take, and then the defense has just been
and you would
abysmal. Yeah,
you would think with that ankle, but if you told any Chiefs fan before the game,
did you see it happen the second time last week?
I didn't see it.
He had one of the offensive linemen step on him.
Yes, no, you're right.
And it bent towards the inside. I don't know how it didn't break the ankle.
Yeah.
You've got a 300-and-some-pound guy. Did you not see that when we were eating dinner?
Yes.
It was a total
it about made me
accident.
sick.
But
I hate those injuries, especially when it's your own teammate, because you know that offensive lineman's just sick because he's a no-name guy, and then he about breaks the franchise just doing his job.
By the way, we missed you, KP, last week at our post-show party. Had a good time.
I'm sorry. I went. My
cousin
was in town. I had dinner with him. I barely get to see him.
We're probably going to have to start planning these things a little better so we can get on his social calendar.
That's right. Well, social calendar.
In December, you know what's going to happen? He's going to run out of the house. We're going to go, no, we don't want you to. No.
Sorry.
No,
babies
close
in bars
party.
yet?
No daddy's allowed. Speaking of problems, how about the Dallas Cowboys? 3-3 after a 3-0 start. And, I don't know. Who do you blame? I'm going to start with Jerry Jones because of his undying loyalty for some reason to Jason Garrett. I'm going to blame Jason Garrett. 9 years is enough time. Let's move on. And then I think you have to, in part, blame the players. Dak Prescott has really regressed the last 3 weeks. I know it hurt him to not have the full complement of his weapons, but how many times do we see Super Bowl caliber quarterbacks win in this league without all their weapons? Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, it happened a lot. So I don't know where the problem is. There's obviously two glaring problems, in my opinion, the head coach and the owner.
Yes. Yeah, I think you got to start with the owner. You look at what Jerry's done, the fact that he just refuses to even put any pressure, at least outwardly, towards the media on Jason Garrett. I mean, he's
very careful with his words about it.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's all him.
Right. It's just too much. I mean,
say it.
Throw him under the bus.
Yeah.
At this point, it's on him. He's not getting that team motivated. The clip of
I was going to ask you. It's a small clip, but did that not send a message?
That says everything. Where he's out there, got both his hands out, trying to give everybody high fives.
And
nobody.
They leave him hanging.
About 5 players run by him, don't even look at him. And when you're not even high fiving your head coach on your way back, you've lost control of that team, and something has to change, and soon, or the Cowboys are not even going to make the playoffs after starting off 3-0.
Well, they're going to have to win their division more than likely now, because I don't know that both Dallas and Philadelphia with their 3-3 starts are going to get a champion and a wild card out of that division now. I thought they would. Huge game Sunday at home against Philadelphia. Doug Peterson, the head coach of the Eagles, is already basically guaranteeing a victory. That may tell you how little respect he actually has for the Cowboys at home. My question to you about Jason Garrett is this. Should he be I think he's done. I think Jerry Jones is going to pull the plug on the Jason Garrett experiment, 9-year experiment, at the end of the year. If you know you're going to do that, do you go ahead and try to put a little bit more spark in this team and make a head coaching change in the middle of the year? Most of the time, that does not work. But something's not working right now.
I say no, and the reason I say no is because I say you go all in with Jason Garrett right now, and you let him know. I mean, your contract's up; it's a sign or re-sign. We don't have to fire you, but we're going to not re-sign you. The reason I say no on that is because the replacement head coach that you want isn't out there yet or isn't available. He's still coaching, and I'm going to be real with you, and get ready, Sooner fans, to plug your ears. The reason you don't fire Jason Garrett right now is because Lincoln Riley's not leaving this OU team mid-season. He's going to leave. He's going to leave OU when the season's over.
No, he's not.
I don't think. Honestly, I don't know that he would either. But as a Cowboys fan, I thought it this weekend. Was thinking about it. I was like, oh man, just look at Lincoln Riley, the way he's calling these run plays for these OU running backs. Look at these quarterbacks he's put through. Would there not be a better coach on planet Earth for the Dak Zeke era than Lincoln Riley? Take off your Sooner hat right now and put your Cowboys hat on.
I'm going to take mine off because I'm going to tell you right now. I think you're right on that. But as good as Lincoln Riley is, and he is a genius offensively, keep in mind that there's guys right down the hall that are just as good defensively as you are offensively. And they're going to find a way to slow things down eventually.
Let's pump the brakes on that. You're right. You're close. Lincoln Riley is a top tier.
I agree.
These defensive guys are good, not top tier.
There's a lot of geniuses defensively in the NFL, too.
Yes.
They're not called geniuses because that's reserved for offensive guys.
Correct.
I agree. I think Lincoln Riley is an NFL head coach. I think he will be very successful there. My deal is, and I'm a Cowboys fan, not near as big a Cowboys fan as I am a Sooner fan, okay? So I'm going to be sick if he goes to Dallas. Why would you go to Dallas and work for Jerry Jones? We don't know. Here's the burning question, and Toby Rowland said this last week, and nobody knows about Lincoln. Lincoln is brilliant beyond calling plays. He calculates everything. It's not going to be, I can go make $10 million. I'm going to go be Jerry's head coach. The question comes down is, as a native Texan, how big of a deal is it for him to coach the Dallas Cowboys? And to me, if I'm going to get paid comparable money, I'm going to stay in college football. I'm going to stay and work for the best athletic director in the country, and I'm going to recruit my players as to go through having to deal with contract problems and all the ego. Not that there's not egos in big-time college football, because there is, but nothing like the NFL. I think at some point he may leave. I do not see him leaving this time, but
I will say, though, if the Dallas Cowboys come knocking, that is the one.
Do you think the Dallas Cowboys is a better job than OU? I don't.
I don't think at this moment, no.
Right. I'll tell you why I don't. It's because of Jerry Jones.
Yes.
That's it. And Jerry Jones is going to be there till he dies. So at what point does that become a better job?
And
America's team?
When he gets a GM that someone can trust.
Laugh at it if you want.
I'm going to laugh at him because you know what? Bill Parcells is the last good coach that man hired.
Yeah.
And he couldn't take it.
You're right. No, you're right.
He couldn't work for him. He can't work for a micromanager. I don't see how Lincoln Riley's going to be able to do that.
If Lincoln takes the job, there's a handshake agreement before he takes the job where he says, Jerry.
Well, how do you know there wasn't with Bill Parcells?
You're right. But I think Lincoln would be Lincoln would be the hottest girl at the school to Jerry. Lincoln would be Jerry's number one choice, and Lincoln would know that, and he'd be smart enough to know, listen, you want me more than I want you, so here's how it's going to be. And I think Jerry and his 8, you would hope. So let's say all this because we're talking about Jerry Jones here. We're dealing with a big ego. You would hope he would say, hey, look, my way hasn't worked the last few goes at it, so let's try something new. Let's try something else. You would hope.
That's never going to happen.
You're right.
It hasn't happened forever.
We're talking about Jerry Jones.
He can shake his hand and look at him in the eye and tell him whatever he wants to hear.
Yeah.
But
because,
I'm just telling you, Jerry has never relinquished control. The best coach that he's ever had was Jimmy Johnson, and he could not give up his ego enough to give Jimmy enough to work in the job long term and the credit that he deserved for rebuilding this franchise.
Yep.
So I don't know why it's going to be different with Lincoln Riley, other than his age, time. He wants to start winning again. But I wonder sometimes his actions speak louder than words. How much do you want to win? If you want to win, why do you keep going with Jason Garrett?
Yes.
Right. And the other thing about why Lincoln probably won't take this job is because the job security that he has at OU is unmatched. He could go down as a legend at one of the greatest universities ever. He could be like a Bear Bryant type of legend at OU if he stays and builds this thing and continues on the pace they're at. If you go to the NFL, there is one head coaching job that is secure no matter what happens during a season. That's Bill Belichick.
Yes.
In my opinion, there is one head coach who every single year his job is safe no matter what. And by the way, that run is coming towards an end too. So no matter how good he is in the NFL, he's one crappy season, one drama-filled player or bad decision away from being out one bad tweet from being out the door. And I think that's a little bit different at the college side.
But all that said, though, it's still the Dallas Cowboys.
It's still the Dallas Cowboys.
And of any job in the NFL, of any of the 32 jobs out there, this is the one that worries me the most, and it always has. It's
the Cleveland Browns of Bob Stoops.
Okay,
Everybody thought he would want to go back to Ohio.
Sure, but it's still, they were the Browns. They're a dumpster fire of a franchise.
This is
you're like,
the Dallas Cowboys. Lincoln Riley, when he was a young boy from Muleshoe, Texas, was
That's
growing up.
That's the unanswered question that none of us know, is how much of a burning desire does he want to be of the Dallas Cowboys?
I think we're going to find out.
I do too, and Toby said that last week. We went through this once already. He said, I'm going to pass. We're going to go through it again, and we're probably going to go through it again. That's the price you have when you have a very successful and an offensive savant. You're right. I don't think he's going to leave because I think he's got unfinished business. I think he wants to win a national title.
I agree. But if he wins national title,
year,
oh boy, yeah.
I think he's more likely to stay.
I would agree with that to a point. But
because at what point, if he loses this year, he's like, okay, I've had Baker, I've had Kyler, I've had Jalen, and it's not happening.
And with the best defense you've had of those
Jerry Jones's phone calls are
but that defense can get a lot better.
Yep.
You're right.
They're recruiting better people. And that defense is going to be better next year than it is this year. In a perfect world, the Dallas Cowboys would be the most coveted job in the NFL for anybody. But we don't live in a perfect world, guys, because of the one guy. It's because of one guy. It's not the best job in the NFL. It's not. I think Pittsburgh is better. I think Green Bay is better. I think New England is better. Right now, I'm not saying it's more prestigious, but
you don't have to deal with Jerry Jones at any of those places.
That's a horrible problem.
It's terrible, and I think because of that, the Cowboys are always going to be playing with one hand tied behind their back, and you've seen it. The last several years, the Cowboys have won, one playoff game in the last 20 years? It's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's embarrassing for the franchise.
We've got more than one now.
Oh, what?
Two
now?
We got
okay,
two.
yeah.
We
We've
got
doubled
two.
it up.
Dak's
You're
got
right.
one. Tony's got one.
Oh,
Since '96, we have two.
It's unbelievable how bad it's been. And something has got to change. Jason Garrett's not the answer. I don't know if Lincoln Riley would go. I think he would be the answer if he went. But again, you say that, but then you don't know how much control of the team he's actually going to have because of Jerry Jones. So it's all just a mess. And until Jerry decides that he's ready to try something different and be serious about it, which at this point in his life, I don't know if there's change is a word in his vocabulary. So
it's not the
it's a
only
problem.
reason he would even consider changing is because of his age, and he knows that time's running out for him to get another Super Bowl.
He's in the third, fourth quarter of his life.
He is not going to change. I mean, he's just not. And guys, there's a reason. And I know part of this is as an OU fan speaking. I want him to stay in Norman. I just don't think Dallas right now because of Jerry is a better job. Now, why have you gone from two proven Super Bowl winning coaches in Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells to Wade Phillips, to Dave Campo, to Jason Garrett? What does that tell you about what goes on down there?
Yeah.
It tells you that a lot of good football coaches aren't interested.
That's exactly right.
Why didn't you hire Dave Campo if you had a big, long list? Because Jerry, at the end of the day, in my opinion, wants a puppet. Mm-hmm. And he has one in Jason Garrett.
He's got his best one yet.
He's got one that it fits like a glove at this point.
So I'll ask you. I say he doesn't leave because I don't think the timing's right. I think someday Lincoln Riley will be in the NFL. What do you guys think? Is this it for him and Norman?
No.
If Dallas comes calling.
Well, that's the whole thing is if it's Dallas.
Yes or no?
No, not this year.
Okay. I agree with that thinking.
My heart wants what my heart wants. My heart wants Lincoln Riley in Dallas. So yes, give me Lincoln. Sorry, Sooners. I want him in Dallas.
We'll just go find somebody else to stomp on Mike Gundy. That's fine. It doesn't
go
matter.
ahead, promote Alex Grinch. He's
doing something.
He's the guy.
Right.
Yeah, make your new identity defense.
They'll have to get an offensive coach in there, and Alex Grinch will stay over there on the defensive side of the ball and do very, very well. Thank you very much.
That's what I'm saying.
And you guys can continue to go hire your Ivy League born and educated.
That's right. Gundy gets on Google. You watch out. That's where he's finding his coaches.
Okay, one other thing on the NFL. Washington, Miami, the Turd Bowl yesterday.
Oh, boy. Jeez.
I didn't watch it. You
guys
saw one play, and I guess it kind of exemplifies it.
Okay, so here we go. Redskins, Miami Dolphins, the winless, the Turd Bowl. So we're going into the fourth quarter. Miami says, all right, let's go ahead and bench Josh Rosen, the guy that we just traded for, the guy who we gave the reins to week 3. Let's bring out Fitzmagic. And guess what? Fitzmagic was working and was real. Fitzmagic brings them back. They are down by 7. Fitzmagic throws a touchdown pass with 31 seconds to go. Miami goes, screw it. Let's go for the win. They line up for a 2-point conversion, which, by the way, that's the right move.
Sure.
They're not gonna win a game all year. They've got the game in their hands. They've got all the momentum. They're at home. Let's go for it. Let's line up. Let's go for 2. They run a screen pass to their running back on a 2-point conversion, which, first of all, terrible play call. Second of all, the ball hit the running back right in the hands, and he dropped it. So the play it was over before it even started. I just think it's a perfect symbol to this, the perfect feather in the cap to this Miami Dolphins season is we had a chance, we went for 2, we had a terrible play call, and we blew it. I rewatched the play call about 3 or 4 times because I wanted to see oh man, if he caught it, was he in? No, there's 3 dudes waiting on him. It would have been a loss of yardage. It would have been a bad play call, but it happened, and Miami went for the win, swung and missed in the largest fashion.
Boy, that's something they do know how to do is swing and miss.
Mm-hmm. Well, wasn't it a few years? I just had this thought. Remember a few years ago where they won their one game, and didn't they win it on an 80-yard touchdown play?
It was a fluke.
Overtime or something. Yeah, it was a fluke.
It was an accident.
Crazy play into the game. So they had this one. They were going for their one. They knew it, and oh boy, there's another podcast I listened to, and the guy was joking, but he was half joking. He goes, "What do you think, Kenyon Drake, the guy who dropped the pass? Do you think he was thinking Tua when he was running that route and said, if I drop this pass, maybe Tua's throwing this to me next year. Tanking for Tua. I think it's a terrible idea.
I think
the
what
Dolphins
bothers me about what the Miami Dolphins are doing right now is it is just obvious. I mean, they're not even hiding what they're doing, and yet they're charging their outrageous prices for their few thousand fans to come watch this ripoff. It sickens me.
Watching
it really
that play,
that makes you wonder. Just drop a pass.
The thought creeps into your head of, were they actually trying to lose? Because they went for 2, and they had a terrible play call. I mean, if Ryan Fitzpatrick steps up and clocks it, throws the ball in the dirt, like, yeah, that's obvious.
Well, that may happen later.
It was that play call seemed to be.
I think they are actively avoiding winning. I don't know if they're trying to lose, but they're not.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
They're actively avoiding wins as much as possible.
That's the politically correct way to say that.
All right, before we take our final break, we want to give you this week's VIBELAND fan poll question of the week. You can log on to @VIBELAND Sports. We'd love to hear your opinion on this one. Who is to blame for the Dallas Cowboys' recent slump? Is it A. Jason Garrett? Is it B. Jerry Jones? Is it C, the players? We almost went with a fourth one, all of the above, but we want you to pick.
Right.
Somebody
We wanna know.
Somebody actually set this dumpster fire on, got it going.
Oh, yeah.
So, and again, why are we? I mean, hey, they could be 13-3. I mean, we're maybe pushing the panic button a little too quickly, but I just don't like what I've seen the last 2 weeks.
And I made the point earlier in the year with that 3-0 start. I said you got to get wins against every team you can in the NFL. And Sunday was a perfect example of another game where it was an 0-5 team going in there, but you got to collect the wins when you can. And they didn't. So I think this haunts them for longer than it should.
I will say this. The
problem.
Jets were a much different football team, obviously, with Sam Darnold.
Wow.
And apparently they rolled out a playbook that they have not had all year. They have their Sam Darnold playbook, and they were running a bunch of stuff that Dallas had no idea was coming.
They scored more touchdowns in a 3-minute span than they had all season long.
Can you not go back and look in past years if Sam Darnold's going to play?
There's got to be some kind of
There's
anything.
a little bit of a book out there.
There's something out there. Nothing that the Cowboys did on Sunday was good.
They weren't ready to play.
They came out flat, and they stayed flat until, again, just like the previous week, they're down in the dumps, getting just blown out, and then they realize, oh, wait, maybe we should try to actually perform at our level here, and they come all the way back, roaring back, and it's still too little too late.
And by the way, that roaring comeback, we lost so we lose by 2 because that 2-point conversion, Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator for the Jet, dialed up an excellent blitz right there.
And see, that's what Greg Williams is a guy that comes to my mind when I'm talking about slowing down these offenses. There's guys that are very, very good in the NFL, and they finally figure things out.
That was a smart play call because he blitzed the safety, and Dak basically, as soon as the ball touched his hands, had to make the throw. Wasn't anywhere close. Witten hadn't even turned around yet. So it was an excellent play call on the defense. But it goes back again, like I said, every win is important. Every play is important. Brett Maher, the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys, kicks a 50-yard field goal, kicks his franchise-tying 62-yard field goal. I love watching kickers go up when the ball is snapped and held. It's behind the 50-yard line on the logo. This dude made a field goal from behind the 50 and then missed essentially an extra point. It's cost us 3 points, and we lose by 2.
Well, if this were the Miami Dolphins, you'd smell smoke, wouldn't you?
Exactly, yeah. Brett Maher, you were a hero, and then we lose the game by 2. Nobody is the second we cut Dan Bailey. There'll never be a kicker that's good enough for me again for the Dallas Cowboys.
Again, this week's
trust him.
VIBELAND Sports fan poll question of the week. Go to Twitter @VIBELAND Sports and log on. Who is to blame for the Dallas Cowboys' recent slump? Is it A, Jason Garrett? Is it B, Jerry Jones? Or is it C, the players? We'll talk briefly about the Major League Baseball playoffs and be back to wrap up episode 32 right after this. Major League Baseball playoffs, guys, continue. We're brilliant, aren't we? We all sit here last week, this time, sang the praises of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And Dave Roberts was their undoing. Boy, he really handled that pitching staff bad in Game 5.
Jeez.
Washington, who had never won a playoff series since the 1981 Montreal Expos as a franchise, beats the team with the best record of the National League. And now, fast forward a week later, they're 2 wins away from going to their first World Series as the Nationals, leading 2-0 over the Cardinals.
It's crazy that a team could lose a guy like Bryce Harper, who is, people were talking.
I guess Washington fans have been lighting him up on Twitter.
And
it's been amazing.
Good for him.
Yes.
As a Thunder fan with KD, oh man, if we were in that scenario the next year, whoo.
Oh, exactly.
Sting would have been a lot less.
Oh, 100%. And they were talking about that guy being like the Michael Jordan of baseball when he was like 16 years old.
He was on the cover. He was the LeBron. Yeah. He was the chosen one. They put him on Sports Illustrated on that cover when he was 16, and the guy they did that to before was LeBron James.
Yes.
I met him and more and had him sign that.
When he was in high school.
He used to come. I remember my little neighbor kids would go travel and watch Bryce Harper play baseball when he was like a sophomore in high school.
And how many...
He was appointment must-see TV before he had his driver's license.
Yeah. And now you lose that guy and you win your first playoff series, and it looks like you're heading to the World Series.
By the way, in the same division as his new team.
It's just too good of a story for me.
Awesome. I mean, they were 5 outs away, right? When Kershaw steps in, or were they? Because he struck out the first guy, I think. They were down by 2 in the 8th inning, I believe, if I have it right. Kershaw comes in, strikes out a guy, and then back-to-back homers to tie. So they were, and then hit the grand slam in the 10th. They were 5 outs away from their season being over, and now they're 2 wins away from the World Series. Wow.
I'm all about it. I'm rooting for them. Very much so.
The attitude is real.
Oh, I would like to see a Houston and Washington championship. Yep. I think that would be a great World Series, and I think we'll see what it comes down to. But good for the Nationals, and just good for that whole franchise. Good for baseball when there's that much parity.
Exactly.
By the way, speaking of mishandling your pitching staff, Aaron Boone made a couple of critical mistakes with his pitching staff last night in that 11-inning loss to Houston, which may have kept the Stros season alive. That series even at 1-1 going back to New York on Tuesday night. The Yankees have really pitched very well, Casady, in the first 2 games in Houston against that homer-happy lineup, something that we weren't certain might happen.
Yeah, I will say that they have pitched a lot better, but he went through so many pitching changes in that game too, and I just felt like nobody was ever able to establish themselves on the mound, and I know that you had to do that when you pull your starter after I think it was at the 3rd. You have to. You're putting it on the hands of the bullpen at that point, and then it goes into extras, and so now you're that much more shorthanded. And then they pitched backwards when they got to extras, and I don't know. I think it was a risk that they were trying to take, and it didn't quite work out for them. But I will say the first 2 games, their pitching staff has pitched well enough to be up 2-0, and that was something that I was not sure that we'd see.
I was so confident in Houston, I kind of overlooked the Yankees. So the Yankees have really impressed me. Again, it was just because I was so high on Houston, and they've come down to earth a little bit. Looked, like I said, before the playoffs started, I was kind of sitting here saying, it's baseball. They're not going to win every game, but I would be surprised if anybody took them beyond 5 or 6, and it looks like the Yankees are going to do that.
Okay, I want to wrap this show up with a little bit of humor. And this goes to show you, we were talking about Bryce Harper being so hyped, and he still is a great player.
Oh, sure.
I just don't think he is a championship mentality type guy.
Yeah.
But baseball is such an exact science when it comes to scouting. I found this earlier this week on Twitter, and this is the scouting report from MLB The Show in 2011 on Mike Trout. Here's the grades they gave him. Overall, C. Contact, F. Power, F.
Wow.
Fielding, C. Speed, B.
They give him some speed.
And listen to this. Major league potential, D.
D.
Now I'm going to read you some of the stuff they said, okay? If he goes yard more than a half dozen times, be thankful.
Oh, wow.
A competent defender makes the routine plays.
Wow.
Here's another good one. He can steal bases, but not as many as the game's best thieves.
Jeez.
And here we go. Could be a decent regular, nothing more.
That's
the scouting report on Mike Trout from 2011.
Nothing more than decent, huh?
That's exactly.
Yeah. Nothing more than the best player in baseball and, multiple MVPs.
First ballot Hall of Famer, yada, yada.
I wonder how many people.
But he could be a decent regular. But again, that's what you see at the time. That's how inexact that scouting is for Major League Baseball players.
Wow.
So that blows my mind. I can't even read it, as I just proved to you, without laughing.
It's comical now looking back at it and thinking, I mean, yeah, maybe at the time he wasn't a world beater like he is now, but still, you got to give him a little more credit than what they did.
They didn't give him much, did they? I mean, I don't think my report card would be much worse. I mean, where he got a C, I would get an F. I would get the 2 Fs that he got. C fielding, I probably was a C fielder. I couldn't hit. Speed, nah, I'd be an F. And then potential, I would be 1 off of him. He got a D, I would have been an F. Isn't that amazing? It's just
those. It's always funny. That's one of those bad takes exposed type.
And
it did not age well, that report.
And then all these
age
kids
like milk.
I think about it with football all the time. All these 5-star kids, like I love going back and looking at those lists. And like by the time they should be in the NFL, who was the best high school kid that year? You don't even know who they are because they're nobodies.
All right, that's our show for this week. One more time, log on to VIBELAND Sports on Twitter. Go to our Twitter fan poll question of the week. Who is to blame for the Cowboys' recent slump? Is it Jason Garrett? Is it Jerry Jones? Is it C, the Cowboy players themselves? We're back for episode 33 next week, guys. Have a good week.
You too.
Absolutely.
For Casady and for Kelby, I'm Todd Miller. We'll see you again next week for another episode of VIBELAND Sports, a weekly presentation of VIBELAND Inc.